For many of us paying attention to Disney releases these last several years, it's been pretty obvious that they're not what they used to be. This is something that Disney themselves and their friendly media allies have been trying to say, like, no, everything's fine. People still love our movies until sometime after the release of the movie. Then they're like, okay, that movie wasn't really that good, but the next one's going to be so much better. But now it looks like Disney can't hide that anymore. And they're actually starting to come out and say, yeah, we have a problem and we need to address that. But before we get into all this, if you're new to the channel here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a comment and hit the like button too, because it really helps me out. So I got this article pulled up from Variety talking about it with this headline: Disney's boy trouble. Studio seeks original IP to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles. And yeah, this is something that many have been saying for years now. And they've just been called like ists and phobes and other things like that. But apparently they were right this whole time that Disney has been spending too much time trying to pander to female demographics, and they ignored their entire male demographic. As a result, they've been losing box office revenue hand over fist. Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty aren't the only ones looking for a prince. Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months. Multiple sources tell Variety for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men is defined here by sources as age 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. Then it just goes on to say, first, every film studio is looking for better ways to convert young audiences into habitual moviegoers. Numerous studies show that Gen Z men in particular are a lonely, gaming-obsessed group who were hampered in their formative years by COVID-19 lockdowns. Not the easiest segment to grasp, but what's surprising producers, writers, and other partners in the larger industry is that Disney has been calling for original concepts to lure the demo back to the movies. And I think a lot of the reason why Gen Z men particularly are not really invested in the current day entertainment industry, it's because it's an industry that doesn't care about them, or pretty much took them for granted. Men would go to movies all the time, and then the studios started to go make deliberate efforts to try to appeal to female demographics, or even worse, some studios and some movies are actually going out of their way to demonize young men. And at that point, people were just like, well, we might as well just not even bother, because if we're just going to go to a movie and learn that we're the cause of everything wrong with the world, then I mean, what's the point of that? So might as well do something else. And I think they're gravitating towards video game, because even though many video games are kind of going down that same route, there's still a lot more out there that are not basically hating them just for the fact that they're men. And that's why they can actually enjoy that hobby, as opposed to the movie industry, where it's actually been pretty bad towards them. This is the same Disney whose multi-billion-dollar content engines, Marvel and Lucasfilm, have sated men of all ages over almost 2 decades since the company acquired them. The sources say Disney has been seeking new IP and pitches, such as splashy global adventures and treasure hunts, as well as seasonal fair-like films for Halloween Corridor. The call comes as the Star Wars machine struggles to produce any film projects, and the superhero genre sheds audiences by the minute. And a lot of this is also their own doing. I mean, you just look at Marvel and Lucasfilm. You got Kathleen Kennedy in charge of Lucasfilm, whose stated goal was to try to appeal to female demographics. You know, the famous picture of her wearing the shirt, "The Force is female," and that's what the whole Disney sequel trilogy was about, trying to push for a more female-centric Star Wars. And that's something Kathleen Kennedy herself has even said that that's what they're trying to do. And then post-Endgame, Kevin Feige even said that he's trying to bring in more of the female demographic into the MCU and try to appeal to them by producing more female superheroes and other things of that nature. And we've seen the result of that hasn't really been that good for them. And the funny thing about this is both Star Wars and Marvel actually had a pretty strong contingent of female fans prior to their moves in this direction. Now, was it as big as what we saw with male demographics? No, and that's because those type of properties generally don't appeal to the female audience. There are certain movies, it might be stereotypical, but I mean, it's stereotypical for a reason. Certain movies tend to appeal to more males, and other movies that tend to appeal to more females. It'd be like someone trying to take a rom-com and say like, okay, we need to make this for men. Now, I'm not saying such a thing can't ever work, or you can't have a rom-com that appeals to both women and men, but generally speaking, it's a property that's going to appeal more towards the female demographic. And if you're going to try to make something this is a rom-com, but it's for men, then it's probably going to not do too well, because men aren't really that interested in that type of a movie, and females who are more interested in those type of movies probably want to be interested in one that's trying to pander towards the male demographic. So something like that probably wouldn't work out too well. And that's essentially what we saw Marvel and Lucasfilm do with their properties. They were not only willing to sacrifice their core demographic, which is the male audience, for those in order to try to appeal to a female demographic that probably wasn't interested to begin with, but the female demographic who were previously interested in it are no longer interested in what they're doing, because they've fundamentally changed the whole makeup of Marvel and Lucasfilm and properties in order to try to appeal to a new audience that wasn't watching it to begin with. So as a result, you're losing the longtime fans, which are both male and females. And as a result, they're going to be struggling. So maybe this new information coming out is Disney trying to do a return to form, but it really doesn't look like that's going to be the case, or it's probably not going to work out in the way that they're hoping it will. While two insiders say the mandate to recruiting young males goes as high as the C-suite, the task primarily has fallen to David Greenbaum, the former Searchlight Pictures co-head, brought on in 2024 to run Disney's live action film business. The label has been sorely lacking in guy-leaning fare like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise for nearly 10 years. Studio insiders say the property is in active development, though not in its last reported iteration involving Margot Robbie, to say nothing of the lackluster attempt to reboot the handoff Indiana Jones in 2023, which earned $383 million worldwide on a $300 million budget. Before marketing costs, a Disney source says that movies for Gen Z men are part of an overall strategy across all labels, but no more urgent than any other quadrant. Okay, so what does this mean? Because they're not really... I think a lot of the problem with it also is just the fact that what they're doing is not necessarily genuine. They're doing something trying to almost run it through a committee and to figure out like, okay, how do we appeal to male audiences? And they're just going to kind of have a checklist of things like, okay, we need to include these type of things, and that's going to appeal to a male demographic. And I think stuff like that kind of works to a certain extent. But ultimately, what's going to happen if they do get pitches from people within the industry, which is something that Disney is seeking out right now, I don't imagine that's going to turn out too well for them, because what you would need is you would need Disney basically to hear out suggestions from creatives within the industry. So a director comes in, pitches an idea. It's like, okay, we want to make a movie that appeals to Gen Z men. What do you got for us? They give their input of what they want to make. Disney is like, okay, yes, we like that idea, so we'll greenlight this project. And if they just left it at that and just gave them the funding to make their project, then it could work. But if Disney's going to step in and be like, okay, that could work, but you need to do this, 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 and this. We focus group this to death. We found that these are the things that Gen Z men want in their movie, so you need to include these elements in it. Also, we don't want to alienate the female demographic, so we need to also include these things. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think this will actually work unless the executives at Disney are willing to just take a hands-off approach. I'm not saying to give them massive fundings to these creatives coming up with these ideas, but be willing to actually just let the creatives who have the ideas that you bought from them basically have the free reign to do what they need to do. Maybe give them a lower budget if you need to, but just take a hands-off approach to it, and then let the creatives make their movies. And I think that could actually help bring in new audiences or bring Gen Z men back into the fold. But honestly, that's something I don't expect Disney is capable of doing. I don't think they could actually produce a project like this, especially if their future is kind of on the line, and take a hands-off approach to it. I think too many executives are going to interfere with the project, and it'll pretty much just undermine what their entire goal was to begin with. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you can, leave a like, and also share the video out there too, because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.